Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We are positively getting back into the sports vibe of things around here after politics and elections and pandemics and all sorts of unrest. The Orioles will head to Fenway Park. We will be piping that game in for no one here on Masson. I'm not sure if Dan Shaughnessy is going to be at the ballpark or not. I know Luke Jones will be at the games here. It's been a weird week. It's been a weird time. He, was here in Baltimore many, many years ago covering Earl Weaver and the Orioles for my alma mater at the Evening Sun, but has made a life as the longtime baseball insider and the coverer of all things sports in Boston. Dan Shaughnessy, we welcome the defending champion back to the Charm City. I wish I had crab cakes to offer you from Fadley's right now, but that's not where we are. I could ship them to you, but these are weird times, right? I mean, baseball for no one in the land of no one, right?
Yeah, very strange time, and I will be at Fenway to see the O's, and wish they were the O's of my youth. I was down there covering them 77 through 81, and it was one of the great times of my life, and loved Baltimore, lived in Towson, and the Evening Sundays under Bill Tanton. It was a great time, and that franchise breaks my heart to see what's happened to the Orioles, because that was the best franchise in baseball for my money, just year after year. Great organization.
Well, we're now at the point where we're in year 29 of a 30-year lease. And I've had Rick Vaughn on at length last week. I had Kevin Byrne, who just left the Ravens after 24 years coming here and all the years in Cleveland with Modell, and just talking about how things have changed. And you're not the first person I've had on from Boston this week. And things have changed where you are, where the Red Sox are not the big dog anymore, and they're changing, and the franchise is changing. And I even see Larry Lucchino and Charlie Steinberg have moved the Paw Sox to Worcester. Things change, and I guess the Red Sox are going to have to find a way to rebuild this, much like baseball's trying to rebuild everywhere, and get something like a fan base under 40 somewhere, right?
Yeah, I mean, the Sox situation is they have a built-in, the ballpark is the star in Boston, and people still, the Fenway Park's like part of the Freedom Trail, and tourists come into town. They want to go there. They're pretty insulated against big drops in attendance. They do very well with the local television market. So they're printing cash still. That's not a problem, and they've won 4 World Series in this century, so that's pretty darn good too. But yeah, they certainly they gave up on this year when they dumped Betts and David Price and the salary dump deal to the Dodgers in February. They're all about resetting the luxury tax threshold. That's the key thing to them. So they've basically chucked it. Of course, then Chris Sale ends up with Tommy John. And their starting rotation is embarrassing. I mean, it's the worst in my lifetime. And I remember the 1960s when they were bad, but they still had Bill Monbouquet and Earl Wilson and Gene Conley. But they got guys you haven't heard of. That bum Cashner came from the Orioles last year. He'd be the ace right now. So yeah, they're very thin in that area, and they've got work to do in terms of their team, because they're not even in the top half of baseball as they go into the season.
Well, I mean, rare is it the year they punt, right? I mean, they've sort of punted this year. We're used to that around here. Angelos owns the team. We've been in rebuild since the beginning of rebuild, not despite the Buck Showalter years, but there's no promise that that's around the corner. I mean, the Red Sox had a glorious run here, right? It's not that easy to put this together, even when you're trying to spend $200 million a year.
No, you're right. And I mean, they won the World Series, 118 games just 2 years ago. So that's pretty darn good. And they're going to mash. They're going to hit this year. You'll see them hit over the weekend at Fenway. They have a really good lineup still. It's just for the product that we're used to here and the prices that they do charge when there are fans, and the great fan base that they have, the support that they get. It's just disappointing to have a bridge here, a year that you rebuild, reset, whatever. And I'm not about it. This whole year is strange in so many ways, but the fact that they go in not as a competitive team is I hate to see that. And of course, 60-game season, Nestor, even the Orioles could contend. Anybody could have a blip.
You're selling me PR now. You're selling. Come on, Sean. It is funny though. But if they start 5-1, if anybody starts 5-1,
yeah,
you've got 10% of the schedule. I mean, And that's very possible. We've seen crazy baseball starts in previous years. And more than that, the teams that have spent all the money on the pitching, it's been a little bit neutralized because, Scherzer's not going 7 innings this weekend for the Nationals no matter what. It really feels like sort of trumped up February baseball right now.
Yes, I mean, with a 60-game season, a lot of chances for outliers. It punishes the teams that are really good, and it benefits the teams that are not that good, because you can have a stretch of 60 games and play pretty good, even if you don't have a good team. We see it all the time. So, yeah, you're going to see some outliers. And I was just texting with Terry Francona earlier. I said, if somebody hits 400 this year, Ted Williams is still the last 400 hitter. I don't care what anybody tells me, because we can find 60-game samples of 400 all over the place.
But what if somebody hits in all 60 games in a row? Oh, that's a different record. Dan Shaughnessy is here. He's at the Boston Globe, waiting for sports to come back. So you've been doing this longer than I have. I mean, I read you when I was a kid, Shaughnessy. I don't want to date you too much because you're still the youthful Dan Shaughnessy. But I mean, I've done this my whole life. I've done sports radio 29 years. I started at the paper in 84. I go back through every calendar of my life, right, that begins a baseball season in February, whether the Orioles were training in St. Pete or Sarasota, wherever. And I look at my professional career in my life, other than like the day after the All-Star game, every other day there's something going on all of my life. And I always wonder, like, what would happen if it just stopped for a week or there was another 9/11. This is a whole different heartbeat for everyone, but I think for those of us who've lived our lives and built our lives around some sort of sports clock in any way, this has been bizarre all the way around.
No question about it. I mean, just being home and, you find things to do, and it's been a blessing to be around your family so much and all that, but to not have the 4 food groups of baseball, football, basketball, hockey, I'm starving for it, and I miss it. And just it's part of the routine. It'll be nice to get back to that, to have a stretch of 4 months, and it'll be nice to finally watch games where we don't know who's going to win. I mean, I've been watching the Bucky Dent game and the Bill Buckner game and the '04 World Series, and I know who's going to win all those games. But even with a strange, goofy season, it'll be nice to go into these things and have some sort of mystery about how the thing's going to turn out again.
Dude, you and I have probably been in the upper deck at 25 Super Bowls together and, whatever. But of all the things you could reference about, like, watching old stuff, about, 2 months ago, my wife's flipping around and Masson's on. It's like 79 World Series. And I made the mistake of putting Game 7 on again. And, from a Baltimore perspective, I'm sure you were in the press box that night, right?
Yeah, I've got a great picture. I was on the field, I was talking to Scotty before the game, and it's weird to think that you could be standing with the starting pitcher of the 7th game of the World Series just chatting, and that's what it was. It was just so different then. It was so informal and relaxed, and that was a very relaxed team to be around. I saw that team play about 180 games. I mean, I was every day of spring training, and I was with them all the way, and it was a great time in my life. I know a great time in their lives, and yeah, when they went up 3-1 in Pittsburgh, and you had Flanagan, Palmer, McGregor coming back, it felt like there was no way they could lose that thing. And that night of Game 7, Earl brought us into the office before the game, and it was Peter Pasquarelli and Terry Pluto and Ken Nigro and myself, and we had been there all year, so he wanted a sense of normalcy and pregame with the guys he was with all year, and he asked all of us how we thought Game 7 was going to go, because things weren't trending well going into that after losing 5 and 6, and all of us gave him the big, I feel great. You guys should be in good shape tonight. And he got done with us, and he said, I don't feel so good about this thing at all. and Earl was right once again. I mean, Dower hit the home run. They got the 1-0 lead, and then, Scotty gave it up to Stargell, and God, they couldn't hit Tekulve or any of those relievers to save their lives. Everybody was in Eddie and Singleton were in deep funks then, and they just couldn't come out of it. And it's still hard for me to believe they lost 3 straight games to that team.
I was 10 years old, dude. That summer, I was 10, and I lived in East Baltimore. My dad was a senior citizen, and we took the bus out for games. I went to 31 straight games without losing. I was 31-0 before Steve Trout pitched the 6-hit shutout, and I met Steve Trout out in Arizona like 3 years ago. He's signing autographs at Sloan Park or whatever, and he remembers that game. He remembers throwing a 6-hit shutout against the 79 Orioles. And I went 38-4 that year, but I was not at Game 7. I was at Game 2. My dad couldn't get tickets, It was a 79 Orioles. It was a lifeblood. It was part of where we are, and yet baseball has sort of messed that up here. And for us, the Orioles playing these 60 sort of meaningless games, beginning in Fenway. Dan, the one thing that concerns me more about baseball is like people turning away from it. But I put the games on this week. It is really a horribly flat television product with no one there. I mean, it's You have to really love baseball to sit for 3 hours and watch it at this point. And that's from a guy named Aparicio who loves baseball.
No, it's a challenge, and they're making it too hard for the next generation. They're, the old guys like myself are going to fade away and not going to be replaced by new fans and new people who love baseball, because as great as the game is, it's really been beaten to a pulp in the last 10 or 15 years. Us old guys, I blame the analytics for a lot of it, but the whole true outcomes of homers, strikeouts, and walks, and every pitcher nibbling away and going to 3-2, and every hitter fouling off and grinding, and the pause and the length of time between pitches. There's no activity. There's no balls in play. There's no action, and it is just a dreadful product to watch day in and day out. It's too much to ask young people to stay with something all day like that on a TV product, and I understand the loss of appetite for it. And also, as we know, they don't market their stars, and it's not social media friendly. And I mean, I've been defending it for a long, long time, but I'm not optimistic about where things are headed the next 10, 20 years for baseball.
Well, you mentioned sitting in and Earl's having a couple of Camels in there, and Stanhouse is in the other. That's where you were. I think, and I've been doing this almost as long as you. I don't know the next time they're going to let me next to a player, any player. I mean, first off, the Orioles threw me out 15 years ago because I wasn't going to play that game. So I haven't had an Oriole press credential in 15 years. But for the Ravens and for covering sports and for the little young Dan Shaughnessy's that wanted to grow up to be you or grow up to be me, or I wanted to grow up to be you. That's what I was doing there. Literally, I had admiration for all of you guys who did this for a living. I don't know that young people are going to do that, but more than that, the days of writing or opining or live show, the stuff that I've built my life on, I've really had to reassess the next time I'm actually going to be in a room with John Harbaugh. And in the case of you with Belichick, he can sneer at you via Zoom now, I guess, right?
Yeah, all those things are true, and it makes me sad. It's the evolution, which is, in my view, not a good thing. But it's the reality. Oh, and you mentioned the Camels in Earl's office. They were unfiltered Raleighs, just so you're clear.
Sorry.
Because we asked Earl, what are you going to do with all those Raleigh coupons? He said, well, you get enough of these Raleigh coupons, you get a brass coffin. So he had a line for everything. But yeah, the access that we had being around the team, being around the players, I've actually started another book, which I pledged to never do, because I got the same experience around the Larry Bird Celtics for 4 years. And, we flew with them. We were in the hotels with them, and we waited for bags with them and traveled on the buses. And it was, except for not making the money or being famous, it was like being on the team. And we were able to tell you, like your listeners, our readers, what they were like, because we were with them so much. And that's never coming back. You're not going to be able to tell the readers, the listeners, what Kevin Durant's like, or the next generation of, Mike Trout, any of these guys. You're just not going to be around them the way that we were. And that's what you were talking about there. And that's gone, and it's not coming back.
Well, there's no doubt about that. Dan Shaughnessy is in Boston. He's gone. He's not coming back, but the Orioles are going up. We hope they come back. All right, big picture here, man. I mean, the Shaughnessy family, the Aparicio family, we've all been affected by this thing the last 6 months. I'm in the sports business, man, and I own the place, right? So I'd like to say I need them to come back and play football, or I need them to come back and do anything. I don't. I'm pivoting my life because I'm 52, and the writing was on the wall for me. But I do worry that they're rushing this thing in such an awful way. We've done so many wrong things as a country, including electing this guy, but the notion that the masks are on now and somehow they're going to get through this, the fact that the NFL thinks they're going to fly around for 24 weeks and sell me on an integrity-based season with a Super Bowl in Tampa, I'm not buying it, Dan. I mean, I don't know that they should start it if they can't finish it.
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, everything's evidently going to start, but who finishes is going to be the big question once they get into this. And the NFL has, as always, they've had a blessed existence in the timing of this, as it really didn't take hold in America until right after their Super Bowl. They've had 6 months to just do everything normal. Here's the draft day. Here's the minicamp day. Here's all of our stuff. Here's free agency period. And nothing. They have behaved as if nothing is happening to the rest of the country and to all the other sports. Well, that's ending very soon with the opening of actual camps and sweaty guys piling on each other and being in dormitories or hotels or wherever. And good luck to them. It's really fun to talk about the Ravens and the Pats and the AFC and all the stuff coming up this year, but whether it'll actually play out, it feels a little bit like fantasy sports, because I'm not confident that it's all going to unfold as we would like.
little weird to see Mookie Betts dangling out with L.A. I mean, I don't know where a Red Sox the head of a Red Sox fan would be, but here we just quit on it, right? We hired these guys from the Astros, and now the Astros are cheating. And the whole notion for the Oriole fan was, we've got Adley Rutschman, we've got the minor leagues. Dan, I took my wife down to the Outer Banks last month. I drove through Bowie, Norfolk, and on the way home, Salisbury, and they're all places, along with Frederick and every Hagerstown and all these places, where they're trying to destroy the minor leagues, where in places like Baltimore, all we have to watch are the minor leagues, and the virus has destroyed the minor league. This year, we talk about our children and losing a year of education around America and what that's going to mean. From a baseball perspective, for all of this investment on these teams that have literally quit, they're quitting on the minor leagues too. I mean, this is going to be a plague for baseball I don't know that they've managed this well at any turn, but for these organizations that are a little bit in peril, Oakland, Tampa, we might wind up having a contraction before this is all over with, or 2 or 3, and the fight between the players and the Players Association just to get on the field has been weird. I really do worry more for baseball at that level.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've cited something that's underreported. It's not talked about as important as it should be, which is, again, you've lost all your feeder programs. No high school sports this year, no college baseball this year, a year of no minor league baseball, and this will affect baseball for a generation in terms of your professional product and your major league product. Not to mention, as you cited, all those wonderful towns with their minor leagues and that they've supported dearly, and the loss in those communities to not have that. And then how that affects the big league team with the feeder pool that they have had through the years. So it's problematic on every level. And I know it's only sports, but that's what we're doing here, is talking about sports on your show. So people should be talking more about what you just cited.
Well, I tell you what, man, wash your hands, wear a mask. If you got to go to Fenway and do your thing, I'll be following along, and we'll be watching them play baseball for no one. We did that here 5 years ago, Dan. We did that. I said it was a bad idea then. I told Kevin Cower when he wrote the book, I said, baseball for no one's a bad idea, and I think we're going to figure out whether they can finish this thing. Hey, man, stay safe and try to enjoy your summer a little bit before we get started with this crazy sports thing that we stopped.
You too, Nestor. Nice talking with you.
Dan Shaughnessy giving me 1979 World Series insider Earl Weaver stories. Why don't I call him and bug him more often? I mean, we don't have any current stuff to talk about. I might as well I'll call Singleton again next week. We'll get some old... Singleton doesn't want to tell the 79 stories. Doesn't mind telling the 83 stories, though. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. You can find Dan Shaughnessy out at the Boston Globe. You can also find him out on Twitter at Dan_Shaughnessy. And maybe next time on, I'll break out the old Evening Sun 1979 full sections. I have Oriole World Series sections with Jim Henneman in there as well. We are Baltimore Positive, WNST.net, AM 1570. We never stop keeping you abreast of all things going on with sports and entertainment.